On today's episode of Versity to Strength with Lee Freeman, I'm joined by Arias Webster-Berry, a powerhouse entrepreneur, digital strategist, and founder of multiple successful companies, including Webster-Berry Marketing, Ignite Funnels, and Launch Ignition AI. Arias's journey is nothing short of remarkable. Raised by a single mother and having experienced homelessness, instability, and the loss of his father at just 13, Arias faced more challenges before adulthood than most face in a lifetime. Both his parents were incarcerated, yet rather than letting that define him, he used it as fuel to rewrite his story. Today, he's helped generate over $112 million in revenue for businesses through his cutting edge marketing strategies and automation tools. His mission is clear: to empower the next generation of entrepreneurs to succeed regardless where they come from. In this conversation, we unpack how he turned trauma into triumph, the mindset behind his relentless drive, and how he's using AI automation and lived experience to change the game for others. This episode is a masterclass in resilience, mindset, and transformation. Arias, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time out today.
Lee, pleasure to be here, man. Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. Take us back to the beginning of your journey. Where did it all start for yourself?
Man, honestly, this whole thing is all it's new to me because a lot of this stuff is ancient history. And, I didn't think that my story was unique, and I definitely didn't think that anybody would want to hear it. So, going back and pulling all these things together is interesting to say the least. But I started as a kid in the suburbs, man. At one point, we lived in a not so great part of town here in Dallas. And then I think when I was 7, 8 years old, we moved from Dallas, Texas to Houston. We spent 7, 8 years there. And then we moved to San Diego. And, San Diego, I remember I was around 12, roughly around there. And I remember my mom coming home and saying, "Hey, we're going to be moving." And I said, "Moving?" We moved a lot, as a kid. So I was like, "Okay." And she says, "Well, we're moving to San Diego." And I'm 12. I was like, what's San Diego? Little did I know it was this, one of the most beautiful cities in the continental United States. Amazing weather. It's usually around 70s, usually not many clouds in the sky, sitting right on the coast and, 15 to 20 minutes north of Mexico. But, shortly after getting there, we faced a lot of hardship. Being in Texas, we at least had family, and there we did not. So I was raised in survival, but I built my life into systems. I didn't have the conventional path into entrepreneurship. My childhood was marked by chaos, instability, loss. Both of my parents spent time incarcerated at one point or another. But, that pressure had really formed something powerful. It created resilience, my resourcefulness, and a radical ownership of my destiny and my path. And, those early experiences taught me to adapt quickly, to solve problems creatively and to never wait for permission to start something or to solve a problem.
With that mindset, was there a particular age or like a time where you got to that and thought, you know what, I'm gonna have to figure things out on my own? How did that happen for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, the first time it was, my dad passed when I was early. It was my freshman year of high school. The moving into high school from middle school is tough, right? You're got all kinds of hormones going on. You're going into high school where, there's girls with, they're a little more free and open, and they're a lot more attractive. And that was kind of one of those first times. My mom, she worked two jobs, two full-time jobs. So, she would work, normal 9 to 5. And then she, I think she had like an hour, maybe two. And then she started her second job like around 8. Right. And then like from 8 to 3, 8 to 4, overnight she would work, and many times she would take me to work with her. She worked a help desk, like IT help desk. So she would take me, and I would like sleep under her desk at her job, right?
Yeah,
Not all the time, but sometimes. And then,
yeah.
maybe I'd stay at friends and stuff like that. So us going to Texas, I mean, going to California, when we were here, I could go to a family member's house, kind of hang out, and it was like just she and I really figuring this out. And when my dad passed, it was a blow, right? Not only were we kind of in this land that we didn't really know much about, we didn't have much support, many friends, but it was like now, even though my dad wasn't around, he was still existing in the world somewhere, right? There was still hope
Yeah.
kind of be around. And with him um, passing, especially in the violent nature that he did, right, is due to police violence. It was just like, all right, well, not I'm completely on my own, but he's not there. Dad's never coming to save you, right? And that's a sobering um, thought in
Yeah.
reality. He
And
says,
you're 13.
yeah, 13, 14, somewhere around
Only
there. So there was that. And then, I was depressed. I didn't realize I was depressed until many years kind of analyzing it. But my grades sunk. I was an athlete. I played basketball. I played football. I ran track, baseball. I was really into sports. And even my interest in sports kind of dipped, right? I wasn't making grades. So sometimes I was on academic probation and, all these different things. And my mom was just like, what the hell? Right. Because this carried basically through all of high school. Right. I was just kind of, sometimes my grades would be great. My teachers loved me because I was smart. At least they told me I was. But they were like, he's not applying himself. And it was that I was just reeling from this loss and not really knowing how to deal with it.
course.
My mom is working all the time. So she's just like, I remember she came into my room and she said she had a drug test because I was acting out. I think I had taken her car or something, went joyriding or something. She's like, "Are you on drugs? You've got to be on drugs. You're sleeping all the time and you're doing crazy stuff and your grades suck." And, I was like, "No." And she didn't believe me. So she had me take a drug test and it came back negative, but then there was like an elevated level somewhere. And I was just like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not doing any drugs. My dad died as a result of drugs. I'm not doing drugs, right?
Yeah, of course.
That was the only thing she could think of to justify my behavior. So I think that was probably the first point, my dad passing. And then the second point was when I was a freshman in college. I went to Orange County to go to college. And she and my mom, I mean, my mom and my grandmother like randomly popped up at my school. They like called me. My grandmother lives in Texas. My mom's in San Diego, and they're both here. And she called me and said, "Hey, we're outside. We're going to take you to lunch." And I'm like, okay.
What are you thinking?
I'm like, I don't know
Are
what
you
the fuck.
worried?
When did my grandmother come to California, and why? And why is it a secret? Why did you tell me? So they picked me up, and I think we went to like maybe like Cheesecake Factory or something because it's my grandmother's favorite restaurant at the time. And we're sitting there talking,
Yeah.
um, and then they tell me that it's a possibility my mom's going to go to jail. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Jail? Like, and there was a domestic violence situation. A guy that she was dating, he let her move in. She let him move in with her. And there was an altercation. He hit her. And my mom has a very strong fight or flight response. Her response is fight. So
Good for her.
she grabbed a nearest object, which happened to be a knife, and she stabbed him.
Yeah.
And and because of that, they said she took it too far, so they brought charges against her. He initiated. He hit her first. All these different things, but they
Sure.
took issue. So yeah, they're telling me this. And so she had to remand herself to custody. So the house, the cars, her job, she emptied her savings to pay for her lawyers. And that also means any money she was sending me for, books and tuition and helping me with rent, all this different stuff, it just evaporated overnight. So, inside of, 2, 3, 4 weeks, I'm homeless. Right. And, I'm like, I need to get a job. I need to figure out where I'm going to stay. I don't have a
Yeah.
car.
So this is talk about sliding doors moment. So
Mm,
you're there studying, you're getting your life together, and then out of nowhere, it's changed. So what happens? Do you like get time? You've got 3 weeks to get out of this room, and then you've got to go and find a job and somewhere to live out of nowhere. And you're how old are you?
I was 18, 19, like that.
18, 19, thinking
Yeah.
about university. So what happened then? So you're literally got what a few days left of where you're staying. I'm guessing at uni to find
Yeah.
an apartment and a job.
Yeah, so I went and I got a job at 24 Hour Fitness, the graveyard shift at the front desk. So I was just like scanning people in. I mean, not many people come in at, midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning. So it was an easy enough job. My idea was, I'm going to go to school during the day. I'm going to go work this job at night and it's kind of easy. So, I can study, and stuff like that. But not having a place to stay, it's kind of, hard to keep energy, right? I'm like, all right, I
Yeah.
get off of work at, 6 a.m., 7 a.m., whatever time I used to get off. and then, maybe I try to get a little sleep during my shift, when I could. I know it's like the slower times are like midnight to maybe 2 o'clock in the morning where people aren't coming in. So maybe I'll get away from the desk and go get a couple hours of sleep, maybe, come back and check, all that kind of stuff. And then after work, I would like go in the stairwell because no one really used the stairs at this place. It was a two or three story, 24-hour fitness, a gym, and I'd kind of go sleep in the stairwell until it was time for school, and I end up getting caught.
Yeah,
They're
or
like,
by a
hey,
manager.
yeah, yeah. I think actually by one of the cleaning staff, and they kind of informed the management.
Right.
And they're like, hey, you can't sleep here if you need help, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, you can't really help me unless you want to give me more money. So, I end up kind of just sleeping in abandoned buildings and stuff like,
Yeah, talking proper homeless.
yeah, 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 yeah. And not, hey, I just went to my friend's house.
Exactly.
I don't technically have a house, but my friend's letting me sleep on his couch. And
Yeah.
that was actually, when you talk about realizing, that I've got to figure it out on my own. I had some friends that I'd, go to bars and stuff with and kind of hang out with, maybe some coworkers from work or, other kids at school. If I asked them, if I could stay on their couch. I think there was one kid that let me stay there for like, I don't know, maybe like a week. And then they had a party and there's this really hot girl. They had a party at the house and I was sleeping on the couch. And this girl, one of the guys liked her and she didn't like him, but she liked me. And he got pissed and he was like, you got to move that night. And I was like, fuck. And I was kind of it. And I remember I got the girl's number. I never even called her because I was like, I need to find somewhere to live. Right. So yeah, it was that, man. It was tough. And, school just wasn't important. It was just like, I need to work.
With the
So
find somewhere to live, what's going through your mind? 'Cause for me, that's one of my biggest fears, no matter
Mhm.
how old I am.
Yeah.
What's going through your mind? Are you just thinking, right, you know what? I'm working. If I can figure this out, I can figure it out. Or is it like sheer panic? Or I don't know. You seem a far more chilled guy than someone like myself in hand and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, there was so much going on, right? The trial with my mom is still happening.
So
Right.
you still got that going on. So you
Yeah.
don't come.
'Cause she remanded herself to custody, but there's still like the whole process of pretrial stuff, going the trial, court dates. They're setting them out by weeks or months, and all this different stuff. So there's that kind of lingering and happening. There's the daily of where do I sleep, get to work, how do I get to school. I figured out how to I bought a bike, so I was biking everywhere. I was like biking from the place I was staying to work, take a shower at the gym because they had a gym and I could like brush my teeth, do all that kind of stuff, which wasn't weird, because everybody takes showers and, does stuff there. So I had somewhere to kind of, do basic stuff and then, bike to school, which was like, I don't know, maybe like 5 or 6 miles away, and then not like be super sweaty and, just frazzled when I get
Yeah.
into class. So, that was kind of it, man. Like, how can I figure out, how to balance this and maybe make some more money and then, figure out what I'm gonna do. But I'm 19. I don't know shit. I don't know anything about anything.
How'd you get your apartment? What happened there?
I ended up dropping out of school, and then
Right.
I moved back to San Diego. No, 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 no. I actually ended up dropping out of school, and then I went back to Texas. I think I went to Texas. I went there for like maybe 4 or 5 months, 6 months, something like that. Stayed with a family member, and then I went back and landed in San Diego. And there's a girl that I had met. We were talking, and then she's like, "Hey, I plan on moving out and getting a place. We should get a place together." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So I went back to San Diego. We both got a place, right? I think she had a friend at a place, helped me get a job. Got a job, and then we kind of stayed there. We had roommates and stuff like that. But that was kind of the first part of me just kind of trying to normalize, right? Finding a job, and then I got into marketing, well, nightlife, right? So when I was in high school, I threw parties, right, with some friends. I played sports, so I knew lots of people. My friends were all athletes, so we knew a good amount of people. We'd throw parties. So a friend of my mom's owned a record label, and it was a small record label. He had like just a few people on his label in addition to his. himself. And at that time, MySpace was still around, the original big social media.
Yeah.
I knew a lot about MySpace, right? It was my era. I was in high school when this whole thing was being created. So, we had spent an enormous amount of time on social media. So that record label basically paid me a little money to kind of help them with social media. And that was some extra income. And I did that well. And he said, "Hey, I've got another company, a promotions company, and we do parties at clubs downtown in the Gaslamp district in San Diego." And he's like, "Hey, I see you're pretty good with helping us with this. What do you think about maybe helping me with, the nightlife thing, the promotions thing?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I threw parties. I know about, passing out flyers and, telling people and getting them excited to come to an event. I tried my hand at that and I was really good at it." Right. I wasn't even old enough to be in the clubs, but because I was like 20, but I could get people there. And that was kind of the thing that I did. I started doing that. We did some like street festival stuff, right, where I did some little marketing for that. And then eventually I got into concerts. I got into like really small local concerts. I got into bigger ones. And then I got into festivals, right? Like full blown, in a arena, 17,000 people, executive producing a concert, right, for Grammy award winning artist. And it just kind of progressed, and it took a while. It took, I'd say, because I graduated high school in like 2003, so I finally got to that point at like 2008, 2009. So it was like 6, 7 years of me just kind of working, doing things, figuring things out to get to that point. But yeah, yeah.
Do you think that you were given like literally 100% of every single thing you're doing because at the back of your mind you never wanted to go back to where you were? Do you think that had part of it to do with it as well as finding something you were passionate about and good at?
Absolutely. Being homeless, not having anywhere to go, not knowing what to do, not really having any skills, sleeping in a car, having to travel with all of your stuff. Those are things that never leave you, right? You
Yeah, of
we
course.
it, it's such a small thing, right? And I have that. I even have it up until recently. I've had that habit of keeping things with me, right? Anyone who's close to me that knows me, I typically have my backpack, right? I have a backpack. It's got my laptop and it's got just some basics in it: chargers, deodorant,
Sure,
toothbrush,
yeah.
just stuff so that no matter where I am, I'm okay. I'm good, right? But that thought, to whenever you're in a space or whenever you're going somewhere to have to kind of think, do I have my stuff so that if anything happens, I'm okay? That doesn't really leave you. And I think that that's
Mm.
very much carried over into life, right? It's like, the 50 Cent album, right? I'm gonna get rich or die trying, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I'm going to figure this thing out. I'm going to become successful. I'm never going there. And
yeah,
the complete opposite swing of the pendulum from homelessness and being destitute is wealth, right? And
yeah,
asset creation and status and money and fame and building these systems, building these businesses that, consistently spit off cash so that, no matter what happens, I'm always taken care of.
exactly.
And thinking about a wife and children and all those different things, it's even worse. It's like, it would, I mean, me being out on the street is one thing, right? Even now, if I, for some, you know, God forbid reason,
Mm.
I ended up, back on the street, right? It would never happen. But that's one thing. But me and my wife, my children, that's a soul crushing thought, right?
Reminds me of like The Pursuit of Happiness.
Yeah.
That movie. I always stick out. Remember that where they're in the toilet and he's
Mhm.
locked the door and stuff, and you're just
He's
like,
keeping the guy from coming in. Yeah.
exactly, yeah,
I could never,
no,
right? There's nothing I wouldn't do. There's no job I wouldn't do. There's
yeah,
no indignity that I wouldn't suffer to keep my children from, having to experience that.
yeah. And that's the difference between some people out there where they're too good for a job. And I'm a therapist, and if tomorrow all my clients dry up, I'll work night shifts in a supermarket stacking shelves because it's going to pay for my kids, it's going to pay for my
Yeah.
family. I don't have an ego, I don't care. And like yourself, you look how far you've gone. But if that all changed tomorrow, it won't. But if it did, you'd go, like, give me a brush. I'll start sweeping the streets because it's going to pay to keep a roof over my family's head.
Yeah. Yeah. At any time, man. And that's why I do what I do. I very much realize that the people that I serve in my agency, they have a dream, right? They're looking, many of them are, they have a 9 to 5. They're in corporate. They are looking for their dreams to come true, this thing that they're passionate about, this thing that they love, whether it's a product, a service, something digital, whatever. They're hoping that this thing can provide for them, and it's going to provide in a way that's consistent enough so that they can hang their hat on it, that they can provide for their children so that they can pay the mortgage, they can, afford insurance and save and, all these different things. And I know that what we do at the agency can be the difference between
Yeah.
that being the case or them having to do whatever they have to do to provide. So it does not escape me that what we do or don't do has a profound impact, and it reverberates through their life and through the life of their employees.
Yeah. I remember like going for like sales jobs long before I was a therapist. And I remember the difference between one sales job that didn't pay anything and one sales job that paid a lot of money. You're there just fingers crossed you're going to get the job. You get into a position where you're hanging everything on that job, which is never a good place to be because you're at a point of weakness there. And if you don't get it, it's a struggle. And if you do get it, then you need to make the most of it there as well. So I can imagine a lot of people really come to you, really hope not to solve their problems, but really change their lives.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, and I know that we can. I've seen what good marketing does. I've seen what good systems do to an entrepreneur and to their business, and that weight that comes off when leads come in, or when
Yeah,
a customer says, yeah, I saw your video on social media and now they're interested, right? Or they get a notification that someone's booked a call with them, and they don't even know who this person is, right?
yeah,
And when that happens consistently, that kind of that exhale, that weight off their shoulder, that something's working. It's that belief that they can do it. And I love that feeling of seeing it in others because I felt it, right? That
yeah,
belief, it turned into Webster-Berry marketing, and it eventually turned into Ignite Funnels and Launch Ignition AI, another system. These companies, I created them not just to make money, but to give other entrepreneurs a way out of the chaos too, right? Because I
yeah.
saw the chaos firsthand through the most of my life, right? I just turned my pain into process, and that process into purpose, you know?
Yeah. You can see that without a doubt. Did you sit there one day and say, "This is the plan I've come up with, I'm going to do this," or did you find yourself just evolving over time?
Definitely evolving. My goal was always just to be an entrepreneur with multiple businesses and,
Yeah,
money coming in, right? That was just kind of the general direction, right? That was my North Star. In terms of digital marketing, in terms of, CRM systems and tech companies that we've built, and, entrepreneurship programs and softwares and stuff, that was just a progression. It was me seeing needs in the market, solving. Usually every business I've actually ever started has always been me solving a problem for myself, right?
right.
Had an issue and I'm like, crap, there's got to be a way to solve this. And then I figured it out through a lot of trial and error. And then I'm like, oh, that works. And then typically, whenever I build something that works for me,
Work
people
for other
around me are
people.
like, hey, how did you do that? Like, you just sent me an email automatically, but you're standing in front of me. I use, a CRM and some automation software. And they're like, huh, like you as an individual, not some large company, just you, right? You're doing, yeah. Well, I need something like that. Hmm. All right. Well, I mean, let's talk. Let's figure out
Yeah.
how I can do that for you, right? And it just turns into a thing. And that's literally with the agency, with Ignite Funnels, with Launch Ignition. It's always been that very organic. Hey, I've solved a problem. You see that you need it too. Cool. Let me see if I can do that for you.
With a lot of the entrepreneurs, though, they can see the potential and that you can change things for them. But I would imagine there's a lot of entrepreneurs, they've got a brilliant idea and they come to you and they know that if they go with you and you can market it with the strategies you've got, it can turn them into money. But the problem is they're coming to you and they probably don't have the money to like, I don't know, hire you or whatever. Is there a way they get around it? Do you do a deal with them? Or have they got, if you got like a baseline, yeah, this is how much it's going to cost. How does that work?
I usually, my biggest thing is always just assessment. I was a sales guy for many years, and, I think a lot of people look at salespeople and they think that, there's always this image of the used car salesman. Uh, and really what that is, no shade to the used car salesman out there. We need it. But what that is, people that are selling people things that they don't need, right?
Yes, yes, yeah,
And
yeah,
that's where the stigma comes from, right? Many people have bought used cars. People are going to buy used cars probably until the end of the time. But it's, did you sell them a car that they actually need, or did you sell them a whole bunch of crap that they can't afford, right?
yeah,
Did you tack on a whole bunch of junk fees and things like that? So for me, it always starts with, what is it that you actually need, right? What is your actual problem? Right? What's the thing that you're grappling with? And now that I know that, let me dig into my tool bag and see what I have to help you, you know? And then once we get there, let's talk about cost, right? So I always take a problem solution based approach. And, sometimes I present solutions and they're like, hey, man, I can't really afford that. And I
sure.
say, okay, well, and I've said it probably on every podcast I've probably ever been on, but I always say, well, you're going to spend time or you're going to spend money, right? There's no two ways about it. You're either going to reach in your pocket and grab some money, borrow some, find some, whatever, in order to pay for it, or you're going to take the time that it takes to acquire the skill to do the thing yourself, right? And there's no other way to do that,
No, no. Or they
Uh,
just end up not doing it,
right?
and all
Which
that
that
time,
means
effort, and money's gone into it.
well,
Yeah,
your problem's just going to get worse typically.
yeah,
Um, so a lot of times it's, if you have the money, great. We have an agency, anything that you need for your business in order to, attract people, convert them, all that kind of stuff. We can do that. If you don't have the money for that, well, let's talk about something like Launch Ignition, because if you don't have the money for our agency, we don't charge, I know some agencies that start at 5 and 6 figures, right? We have things that cost a few $100s to, a couple $1,000s. If you don't have that, well, then that means that there's something wrong with your business. You're not even ready for marketing.
right.
You have a scalability issue. You haven't figured out the true process to be able to do this in mass. So your offer or your product sucks, right? Your process sucks. Good product, good service, but your
Yeah,
products, you don't have the ability to get it to enough people fast enough to make a profit, right? If it takes you a week to make one thing and you're only charging $200 for it, well, that means you can only make $800 in a month. That's not enough,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
If you could figure out how to cut that down to a day, you can make $200 a day, right? That's $6,000 a month. Now, you've got something. So it's either product or it's process. And if it's not process, well, then you got an issue with attracting customers and converting them, right?
yeah. So if you've got somebody that's got a great product, like a website, and it's out in the ether, but nobody
Mhm.
knows about it,
Yeah.
what do you do then, or what do they do then?
Well, then it's a traffic issue, right? Traffic or conversion issue. So then it's, well, we need to get you in front of more people, right? Now, if you're getting plenty of people, you got a good product, got a process, you've got traffic, well, then you have a conversion problem, right? Either your website sucks and it's not conveying the value, or it's making it hard for people to give you their money and get to the solution, or you are a shitty salesperson. All the stuff is there, you just don't know how to communicate that to them, right? So, a lot of times it's, where are you in that process? So many times what I realize with entrepreneurs that are under that, say, 6 figure mark, right? You haven't figured out how to make around 10 grand a month. You usually have offer and process issues, right? Typically that's the thing. You probably have a traffic issue first, but you have to have a good product. You have to have a good offer, right? Product is not an offer. Offer isn't always a product, right? So you got to get those things together. That's why we typically send them over to Launch Ignition, because Launch Ignition is designed to get you structured for scale, right? I need to figure out what your idea, what your business, what your process is, what are the features and benefits, and I need to structure that in a way that's easy to understand. It's easy for you to duplicate, right? Easy for you to convey to your customer. And then once we got that together, well, now let's go over and let's build the machine and then let's feed it. Right. So yeah, it's always an assessment first, because I need to know more about your business. You'd be surprised. I have walked into businesses. I remember a year and a half ago, I went to a custom home builder. A friend of mine was head of HR there, and he called and he said, "Hey man, we've got issues over here. Things aren't looking good. I know you can help. Let me introduce you to the CEO. Like, cool. Go in, pitch, and I'm asking them like, hey, what's your marketing? How much are you guys spending on marketing a month? And I think they said, I think like 5 or 6 grand, something like that. And I said, okay, well, what are you spending it on? What are your goals? Like, what are you guys trying to revenue wise? How many houses are you guys trying to build and sell? And they were like, we're trying to sell, I think something like 500 or 600 houses a year or something like that. And I was like, what, how much is the average house? I think they said somewhere around 400 grand. So when I did the math, it was like, I think like 30 or 40 million a year, right? That they were trying to make. And I think at that time they were probably making like 15 or something like that. I'm like, okay. So I went on their board. I just wrote all this stuff down. I said, you're trying to make $40 million and you're spending 5,000 a month. That means you're spending 60 grand a year trying to make 40 million. Do you see how this minute amount and how much you're trying to, because here's the reality. If you could spend 5 grand, if you could spend $60,000 a year and make 40 million, you'd have every single investor on planet Earth kicking your freaking door down.
Yeah, of course.
It's not that it's not possible. It's that you have unrealistic expectations, and your marketing sucks, your budget sucks, your forecasting sucks, and your process for your salespeople also sucks. You have all these issues, and you keep everybody in the company is kind of blaming each other. Sales is blaming production, blaming marketing, marketing's blaming management, blah blah blah, right? But it is a structural issue, right? You guys don't have a good budget. You don't have good communication. You don't have a good process, and you don't even know if what you are building is attractive to your target demographic because you don't ask them any questions. You don't survey them. So these are all structural issues, right? If you fix those things, the CEO would probably be a lot more comfortable spending more money on marketing, right? So it's always that. It's always trying to figure out where's the gap in the business, right? And most people, they don't look at businesses holistically, especially if you're a business owner, you're in it. You're like,
Yeah.
hey, I got to freaking answer these emails and I need to pay this guy and I got to go build the thing or do the service that I just sold this guy. There isn't much time to kind of peek your head above water and kind of figure out where
Yeah.
you are, how far you are from land.
What about when you've got somebody that's invested, and I know this from my experience, investing in my own brand, putting a
Mhm.
lot of money into a website, that kind of thing, and you're thinking, I'm putting all this money in, I'm not going to see the returns yet, and you kind of like, one, I don't know if I've got the money, or two, I can't keep putting money in without seeing the returns. So people kind of like
Mhm.
stop, yeah, and it's like, especially if they're not an entrepreneur, they've just got an idea and they're kind of learning on the job sort of thing. So
Mhm.
what do you say to people like that? Because especially if they're not sure what they're doing, do you like keep going for it, or but is it good after bad, or do you like literally go and get an expert in because you've got to your level of limitations?
Yeah, I mean, again, it is the time or money, right? Which one's more important to you? Are you trying to get to it quickly? Well, you need an expert,
Yeah,
right? Spend the money, go find it, borrow it, don't steal it, hopefully. Get the money and give it to somebody who knows how to do with it, what to do with it. Now, do your due diligence, make sure that that person has a track record of producing results, right? Do they have any testimonials, any clients that aren't
yeah.
related, right?
That's definitely the biggest thing there as well. Is like even me on like a small scale. Then you hire. I was lucky with like my website. It's not perfect, but there's things on it and it looks amazing. But it's like I really don't know who they're going for. They don't know, and they can do the due diligence, and they can all get testimonials, but they still don't know if they're any better off because it's out of their comfort zone. They've never done this before. So how do the people make more of a calculated choice that's going to be a correct one as opposed to like a stab in the dark, hope for the best when they hire someone?
Well, I think the biggest thing is one, you have to educate yourself, right? I think a lot of entrepreneurs, because information is so cheap these days,
Hmm.
people are not willing to pay for it. And that ends up being their demise, right? I had a big breakthrough in my business when I paid a coach for the first time. Right. And I'm a tinkerer. Give me enough time, I can figure it out. I can reverse engineer anything. But when you pay mentors and coaches or you pay for information, it's not because you're not smart enough to figure it out yourself. It is you're paying for the shortcut. You are paying to skip the potholes. You're paying to skip the wrong turns, right? The bad decisions. You're paying that person because they've already been down that path and they know, hey, don't make a left right there, right? If you go down that street, there's a pack of wild animals. Don't go that
Yeah, yeah,
way. If you turn to
yeah,
a right,
yeah,
that's a freaking dead end. I promise you. If you stay in the right lane, there are 5 potholes that are just going to derail you, and you're going to need to, you're going to be out of commission for a while because you're going to have to repair, right? Stay
cool.
in the center lane, go, make a left, then goes. That's what you need, right? So I think in today's age, there's so much information flying around. Information is cheap, so that they think they can Facebook, Instagram, ebook,
Yeah,
hey, take my little spreadsheet, blah, blah, blah for free, it to success. And you can. I mean, I've done it for a period of time, but it took me an enormous amount of time. I would have made 3 times the amount of money I'm worth right now if I would have hired a coach early, or if I would have went through some formal training to actually know what I was trying to get accomplished. I think that's one of the big things. So first, educating yourself on what you're trying to get accomplished. If you are looking for a marketer, right, you should know a little bit about marketing. So when they tell you SEO, they say the term, you're like, I don't know what the hell SEO is. You do
yeah,
Google
yeah,
search and you're like, oh, I know SEO is search engine optimization. That doesn't mean you know anything about it. It just means you know the damn term. So when a guy
yeah,
tells you it's going to cost you $3,000 a month for SEO, and you're like, yeah, sure, man. Oh, and it's not going to, I mean, yes, SEO is important, but that's not going to solve your problem with cash flow this month. It's not. And any SEO guy that tells you that is full of crap.
yeah,
SEO is a long-term play. That's a 4, 6, 1 year play to, put yourself in a position to rank highly enough for specific terms in a specific geographic area that, produces results regularly, that's measurable and attributed to that particular source. Ads, right? Same thing. You should know a little bit about ads. It's important. It's the fastest way to get to the results you're looking for, especially early in business. But you need to know enough about it. A lot of people in our agency, when we talk to people, they're like, oh, well, yeah, we should do some ads. Well, I boosted that thing on Instagram. Did you?
yeah,
How'd that go? I didn't really see anything. I saw some views, a few likes, but it's not making any money.
yeah,
Okay, well, how
yeah.
much you spend? Oh, $50. All right. You thought you were going to spend $50 and that was going to make a huge impact in your business? As you honestly thought? It's like the guy who spent $5,000 a month is trying to make 40 grand. I mean, 40 million. What are you talking about? No, that's not significant enough. you know,
So with it, because when I set up my own brand as a therapist, and I've got people working for me, and I'm like, well, what have I got to do? How am I going to get there? And also, I'm still figuring it out. Everyone's told me social media, social media. You have to do it,
Mhm.
social media, yeah.
Yeah.
And then obviously learning along the way, but people's like sponsored ads, sponsored ads. Now, I've seen the variation in prices, and you've just made it sound so obvious where somebody wants to make thousands a year, but they're spending like £10 or $10 on
Yeah.
like the spot, and they're like, well, I've got 500 likes. What would you expect? If you're there going, I'm trying to grow a business, and somebody says to you, how much should I spend? What would you sort of recommend? What would you be saying? Yeah, if you need this, you've got a small following, you need to grow it. This is what you need to do to get these results, or at least give you a chance. What would you sort of say to somebody?
I mean, I would say, well, this is actually, I think I'm going to do like a lead magnet or a book on this because it's a question I get all the time. It needs to be a percentage of your projected revenue, right? A statistical way for you to know how much you should spend on marketing and advertising. It needs to be a percentage of your projected revenue. How much money are you trying to make this year? Next 12 months, how much money are you trying to make? I'm trying to make $100,000. I'm trying to make $120,000, $10,000 a month. Awesome. If you're in a business to business, then you should be dedicating around 10% of your projected revenue to marketing. So your
Right,
goal is $120,000. You need to put $12,000 towards marketing minimum, right?
right,
What is that? That's $1,000 a month. Awesome, right? Very simple. If you are in business to consumer or B2C, you should be dedicating around 15 to 20% towards marketing, right? So same scenario. You're business consumer, maybe you sell, I don't know, hair products, and you're trying to make $120,000. Well, great. 20% of 120 is $24,000. You need $2,000 a month, right? Now, that should be for everything, right? That's graphic design, that's ads, that's, you get paying somebody to write some blogs for you, or, do some SEO, or, manage your social media, whatever. All of that should fit in there, right? So does that mean that you have to have the ten or $20,000 up front to get started? No, but you do need to have that budgeted into your annual budget. And if you don't have an annual budget, well, that's the first freaking problem. Like, sit your ass down, open up a spreadsheet, right? Google, Excel, whatever, and set a budget. Hey, I want 100, my goal 120,000 next 12 months. It's July 2026. I want $120,000 on my schedule. I plan to spend, $20,000 on marketing. 12 months, July, August, September, October, November, December, blah, blah, blah. In this column, I'm putting $2,000. I need to go find $2,000 so I can do some marketing, right? And
Yeah.
then make enough, and then I need to kick money back into the hopper to spend it next month. And then let's say we didn't do 10,000 this month, we did 20,000. Cool. If you're taking 20%, well, you now need to put $4,000 into marketing, right? In marketing should be the first thing that you pay, not the last.
So
The
marketing,
first thing you
pretty
pay.
much every business, marketing is your priority. Marketing,
But it's
because
usually
you
the
have the greatest.
last thing on the list. And I
Yeah.
never understood that. It's like you saying, I'll put gas in my car once I get some money. Well, don't you need to go to work? Yeah. Don't you need gas in your car to go to work? Yeah. So
So you
you're gonna
find money.
you go find the money so you can put gas in the car so you can get to work to make money and put more gas in the, around and around we go. In business, for some reason, this conversation is not being had enough, right? I always
Yeah.
know this is going to close when they say that they're cutting the marketing budget. You're done.
You're done.
You are done. The moment you say that you're going to cut your marketing budget, you are screwed. You are in a downward spiral. You are circling the drain. Because without marketing is the lifeblood of any business. It is the circulatory system that keeps you running, right? You cannot survive without leads coming into your business and you converting those into sales.
Yes.
And if you are not, if you are going off of referrals, if you're going off of random people hitting you up because they saw a video online, if you're going off of, oh, I'm just going to go to a networking event every once in a while and maybe go find some people, you are screwed. You need a predictable lead source, right? You have to have one. You need a place where if I spend this much or if I take this action, I get this result. I need 100 leads.
Yeah.
How much does that cost me? It costs me $2,000. $20 a lead. I spend $20. I get 100 leads. Out of those 100 leads, 10 people turn into customers. Each customer is $400 a piece, right? I made 4,000. I spent 2,000. I made 4,000. 100% return on ad spend. Great. Here's my $2,000 again. I'm gonna go, and that's it. Anything else, it's the most nerve wracking thing in the world.
Yeah. And that's why a lot of people won't go ahead, but they're like, yeah, I'll just hope it grows itself.
Mhm.
I get that. What about when you've got somebody that's new to business and you say to them, what's your projection? Because I would imagine a lot of people look at you and go, I've got no idea. How do I get a projection? I'm not a businessman. How do I figure out what I want? I want to make as much money as possible. Yeah, okay, but what's realistic? I don't know. How do you kind of guide them to get a realistic projection if they don't know what they're looking for?
I mean, a couple things. One, do you have any historical data? Any? Have you sold any at all? Based
Right.
off of
But if they
that,
like go, it's a startup.
okay.
Or I don't know. I'm just trying to think of like myself as like being a therapist. So you start off like you're a one-man band, then you get a website built. It's a new website. You got people that's working for you,
Mm-hmm.
self-employed, and then you're trying to get the leads in. So it's kind of new, and it's difficult to go, here's my past experience because I worked for a company or I put an ad out and a few dropped in and it kept me going to a level of X amount a
Yeah,
month.
and that's a fair thing, right? Like, you don't know what you don't know. It's okay, same scenario, 120. Like, first, how much money do you need? And you could say $20 million, whatever, right? Okay, 20
Yeah.
million. In what time period? You're not going from 0 to 20 in 1 year. Is it possible? Yeah, companies do it, but it's unlikely.
Yeah, sure.
Well, realistically, how much money? 100 how much money do you need personally, right?
Mm,
How much does a business need to run? How much does it need to grow?
right.
And what's a
Yeah,
regular sustained growth pattern? My goal is $120,000. If I can make
sure.
120, that's enough for me to kind of pay myself a little bit. I'm not going to be rich. For me to save a little bit, I can invest. in my business, right? And I can put money into marketing, I can grow. Awesome, right? How much is your product on average? So
Hmm.
you sell things at $100. So how many of those $100 products do you need to sell to hit $120,000? Right.
Right.
Start at the goal and then work your way back. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
120,000 at 100. That's what, 20,000 divided by 100. That's 1,200. Let's just give it a nice round, divided by 12, sell, 100 of them a month. The first month, you're most likely not going to sell 100 of them. If we're being honest, right? You're probably not going to sell 100, but maybe you can sell 20,
You're already
five,
seeing the progress.
one a day, for the next month, right? I work 5 days a week, take the weekends off, one a day. Okay. So if you've got 20, then you still have those 80 that you were supposed to sell to keep up for the year, right? You need to spread that 80 over the rest of the year. So I'm only doing 20 for this month. I still got those 80, right? So that would be 1,180 that I need to sell. What's 1,180 divided by 11? Because you got 11 months left in the year, right?
Yeah.
That's 98. I'm sorry, that's not 1,180 divided by 11. That's 107. Right. But what you should be doing is you should be adjusting. But that's the planning. So I was a sales manager for many years, right? So what we did is what we call a gap analysis, right? What's the goal? What's the actual and what's projected,
Yeah.
right? Like what's the gap between those, right? How much were you going? How much did you actually do, right? And then what do you need to switch in your projection in order to fill the gap? Right. And that's on a daily basis, that's on a weekly basis, a monthly, quarterly, and annually. Right. Every single one of my sales rep, we put up a little chart and it said gap, and they would have their weekly goal. And then they would break that weekly goal down into days. Right. And I take their daily goal and have them before lunch and after lunch. Right. You got to sell 2 today. Well, I need you to get 1 before lunch. I need you to get 1 before the end of after lunch. Right. And if you only got 1 maybe before lunch and you didn't get 1 after, well, when we go into the next day, I need you to adjust, because that one's
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
accounted for. I need you to, one of these days during the week, I need you to get that extra sale, right? And you just adjust, and you're shifting your stuff as you go, and that keeps you accountable to that overall goal, right? Because if you don't hit those sales goals, well, then you don't have the money for marketing, which means you don't have any leads. You don't have any leads. You have no one to sell to.
Your business.
So
Yeah.
it's really taking a structured and common sense approach. You don't need to be some math whiz. You don't need to be
You
Excel,
make it
right?
sound so simple and so common sense. Mate, you just break it down and that's like obvious. Oh my God, yeah, of course yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Why would you not do it? So you must have people that come to you and they come out thinking they can take on the world because you've broke it down. They now understand that they can see what they need to do, what you could do for them. And they're like, well, we're unstoppable all of a sudden. I could see just in the
Yeah,
conversation.
but then it's the consistency of you doing it. That's usually the
Right.
problem. I mean, there's no shortage of information on the internet about any of this stuff, right?
Right.
But it's like, are you going to get your butt up and actually do the thing? And when it doesn't
Right.
work out the way you want it to work, are you going to tuck tail and run?
Yeah.
Right? Because you're going to get punched in the face. I promise you. You're going to think, oh, Arias said you do 20. You did 5. And you're like,
Yeah,
I
of
suck.
course. Yeah.
Maybe I'm
I've had
not
that
cut
in
out for this.
sales.
And then, you're like, oh, it's week 5 and I've only got 5. And he said 100 and broke it down to 20 and
But
I only did 5.
yeah,
Right.
well, I remember working in sales in a really good sales job. It was kind of a Wolf of Wall Street job. And there were times where you're working really hard and nothing's happening. But the good salespeople there were the consistent ones and they weren't doing anything different. Or they might adjust a few things and suddenly the sales kept on going. They kept on coming because they stayed consistent in what they knew worked previously. And that's the problem with the ones between the good sales and the bad sales. And I'll say it's the same with the business. He said he's going to get to 20. We're on 5. Well, that's it. Forget it. No, just keep on going because you might get 25.
And I do a weekly meeting with everyone in Launch Ignition. And that was the topic this past Monday. Especially in sales, in business, because business is sales and sales is business. I always told all my sales guys, you don't have it down until you've pitched it 100 times.
Yeah.
Oh, but I just sold the last 10 out of 10. I don't care. That's even worse. You know what that means? You haven't had any failure. You
Yeah.
don't actually know if what you're doing works because maybe it was just 10 people that literally just really needed it. You weren't actually a really good
Exactly. Yeah.
salesperson. You just got
Yeah.
10 layups. What happens when the next 10 say no?
Yeah.
Do you like climb into a hole? Do you bury your head in the sand and you're like, I can't do this, right? You don't have enough chance. You haven't done enough repetitions to really have built the muscle, right? So it's 100 times. And the problem with that 100 is you don't know if your success is going to come in the first 10 or if it's going to be the last.
Yeah.
You could get 90 no's and you say, screw it, I'm giving up. And the next 10 were going to be the ones that all
Yeah.
said yes.
Seen it so many times. So many times.
But it's different. I think it's different when it's business because if you're the business owner, typically it's something personal to you.
Of course.
Your ego is wrapped up in this thing, whether you want to admit it or not, right? You've went outside and you've told people that you're in business. I'm doing this thing. I'm the owner, I'm the CEO, I'm the guy, I'm the girl. And when people tell you no, it feels like a personal attack, right? Or it feels like a sign that you're not cut out for this, or you're fishing in the wrong pond, because rejection is tough, especially for something that you built yourself.
Yeah.
If it's a product or if it's a service, it's something that you came up with, your name, your brand, your picture, it's you for all intents and purposes, right? And someone's saying no to it. It feels like you're personally being rejected, or someone's
Yeah.
telling you that you're worthless. And that's not the case, but it feels like that. And
Mhm.
I think most entrepreneurs fail because they're worried about that rejection.
Yeah.
It's not
It's
even the
good
money.
it's good if you come from like a sales background because most of the time you get rejections anyway, so that hardens your
Mhm.
resolve there as well. But
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, it's tough, but it is the ones that are able to deal with that rejection and realize that that's just par for the course are the ones that actually make it.
what would be your advice to somebody listening in that's got their own business, thinking of their own business, they want to make a success of it. What have I got to do to achieve those goals? What would you say to them?
Mm,
Market, have a
yeah, I mean,
strategy.
marketing is well, but first make sure that you've got a good product.
Yeah,
There's a lot of people selling a lot of crap around the world that is just actual trash. It's no good,
yeah,
not at all. But make sure that you got a good product or service. Make sure that the offer, because again, product is not necessarily an offer, right? An offer is not necessarily a product. Make sure that the product and the offer are solid, right? It's something that people actually want and need. Then make sure that you figured out how to fulfill that offer and that product to them consistently and efficiently, right? After that, you need to find a lead source. You need to figure out where people who want or need what you have congregate, whether that's online or in the real world, right? You need to identify at least one strong lead source, and you need to cultivate it. And then you need to figure out the process of getting those people that are in that space to give you their information and consider your product or service, your offer, right? And turn that into a process, and then rinse and repeat over and over and over and over again. And when you strike gold and you find that lead source, you need to drill, right? You need to pour into it, put everything you got into it, right? In order to get enough momentum, enough money in so that you can fuel your growth. And then
yeah,
once that going, you get a good lead source and they're coming in and you're converting them into sales, right? You get your lead source, figure out how to convert them into sales. That's the key part. And don't relax. You need to find another lead source. You need to
yeah.
find that lead source could fucking dry up.
Yes. Yeah, I've had that happen to me with clients. There's a lead
Yeah.
source that I was like, great. I rested on my laurels, and I didn't realize it was all based on algorithms. And the algorithm, it stopped mine, put my profile into the ether, which I had no idea about, and my leads fell off a cliff. It was only when somebody pointed out to me that I adjusted it and the leads come back. But I made the mistake of not having multiple streams of clients coming in. It was my own
hmm
fault. Valuable
Yep.
lesson learned.
Yep. And then, try to get as many lead sources as you can. At least a strong three,
Yeah,
right? At least a strong three. And then after that, I would say figure out how to get another product or offer
yeah,
and then sell it to the people that you already got, right? Double back,
yeah,
sell your existing customers some more stuff, right? You can like double your income literally just by going to your existing customer base and selling them stuff that
Yeah.
you've already selling them more stuff. And then I would go out and I would try to find more lead sources for that particular product. I'd cross sell to my existing audience and then I'd go find some more lead sources for the new product or service. And now you've got a couple products, you've got happy customers, you've got consistency, and you've built a business.
Yeah, yeah. And the way you explain it, you make it straightforward. I'm not saying simplified, but you make it logical and kind of like obvious. It's like when you see a magic trick, you're like, oh, I can't figure this out. And when you show you the magic trick, you're like, well, that's pretty straightforward. How do I, now I know how to do it.
It
So
was in his
yeah,
sleeve the whole time. Yeah.
exactly. I'll tell you what, Arias, I'm so glad you come on the podcast. It's been fascinating. Not only your story, which is just a really interesting, fascinating story there as well, but the business you got is so interesting. You know your stuff, and I could listen to what you're saying about marketing. It's just so interesting, and everything you say, it makes perfect sense. If you do these things and you're consistent, you will get the results there as well. And these are the things that you need to have there as well. So anyone listening to this is going to get a lot from it there as well. And obviously, all the links associated to yourself is going to be in the episode description there as well. Enjoy your cruise that you've got coming up to my beloved Portsmouth and other places far
Yeah.
more exotic. I appreciate you coming on the podcast today.
Yeah, man. It has been a pleasure, man. It's been a ball, and appreciate you having me.
No, no worries. Thank you so much. Take care, and yeah, thanks again for coming on.
Cheers.